Hello world! Have you ever wanted to beautify your city with a forest like this one, but you just don't know how to do it? Maybe you play vanilla. Maybe you play with one mod. Maybe you play with another mod. And you just don't know how to make a forest like this one happen. What about pretty trees like this, intermingled between the buildings of your city, within the districts? What about a more specialized forest like this, that's very themed with its surroundings? Or finally, what about a mix of the two? Something natural for a nice long walk along the promenade, mixed with a forest that brings the natural treescape from around it. Finally coming to some trees hand-picked by the owners of the tourist attractions to go along with their themes. How does one put this together? How do you make this happen? Well, I'm going to tell you. First, we're going to start with the vanilla method. We've got a spot picked out here. We've got a cityscape to most of the back of the spot. And we do have the actual forestry industry along this other wall, if you will, of where we want to build our treescape. So with vanilla, yes, I have some mods installed right now, but none of them affect what we're about to do. Here's what I think is the most important thing about vanilla. I've only got the vanilla trees selected here. And the way that I do this when I'm working with the vanilla aspect of the game is I choose the tree that I want to be the highlight, or the quote main tree. In this case, I really love the yew tree, so I'm gonna make this guy the main guy. So I put him down just to know that he's the guy, right? Then I want to introduce one or two things. I either want to introduce a variety of texture. So my next choice would be between these two. So here's this guy, here's this guy. Notice how the texture of these leaves looks super similar, but then when you scooch around, the texture of these ones looks very different, right? So I'm going to choose, I think that was the Chinese fan palm, was it? Chinese windmill palm, excuse me. So he's going to be our next guy. The other option would be to choose a fairly drastic, I guess, height difference. This guy would be a good contender. I don't like him, and he doesn't fit with what I want for this area. So he's not happening today. We're not going to have the very drastic height difference today, but the spice of life is the variety, right? So if we can bring a variety in either with height or with texture, we should do at least one of the two, if not both, but we don't want to overwhelm with too many types of trees. So then, the last thing I want to do is bring in a variety of color if possible. Now with the vanilla trees, you're obviously fairly limited. An obvious choice is to go for any of these pink trees. Look at these guys. They work. They bring in color. But I find that these guys work best with, pardon me while I zoom out, they work best with something like this that's more themed. It's specifically meant to be pretty, maybe not necessarily supernatural. So we're not going to use them. We're not going to use them. We're going to prove that we can bring color in without introducing pink. Instead, I want to bring in the bamboo trees. So we can do just the wee guy, or we can bring the big guy in, and we'll do a little variety of both. I will probably end up using less of the big guy, because it brings more with it. Weird. Now, I want this area to cover all along here. I'm gonna kind of time lapse this next part, but basically, a couple things to point out. I'm leaving these trees here because they will transition our manicured forest into the more natural forest-scape, I'm calling it, over here. So we don't want to just delete them in this case for the look I'm going to go for. The other thing is just to watch kind of the line that I make. This is maybe a toady style thing, but I really like making hard lines with my forests, with my treescapes. I find it really attractive. It of course depends on what you're trying to do. Obviously along here that's much softer, much easier flow all up in here. But you can see sometimes I let the roads define the line. It really depends on kind of what look you're going for. So I might try to do a bit of a blend here. I might try to do a fairly hard line, plus a little bit of a transition out. Let's see. The first thing I want to do is I'll talk you through the first part and then I'll just get going. With this being vanilla, you just have to start clicking, right? So I'm going to get a super rough idea of my outline with my first few clicks. That's it. That's what I want the outline to be. I actually think, oh no, I do like that wrapping around this way. So then I know that at least to start, I don't want to go past that. So now with this main tree, I'm just going to start clicking around. I don't want to spam too many of him in one spot, especially because this tree is so wide. It can look weird with it having too much in one spot. Now, the other thing to remember when you are spreading the trees around is that if you try very hard to not go for a patterned look, you're going to go for a patterned look. So you can see I've actually fallen prey to it a bit in here. All of these look, if we're focusing on just the yew tree, all of these look as spaced out as the rest of them. Whereas over here, I've made some variations. So keep that in mind, vary it up. If you try to be very, very random, it's really easy to fall into this trap of just spacing everything out nicely. So put little clusters here and there, but it comes with practice. It comes with looking at your own work and not being afraid to have made the mistake and then fix it, right? So I think that's all the yew trees I'm going to put down. Now we'll go to our windmill palm next, because it is the other tree of the same color. And let me just get the rest of this out. I'll show you the process and we'll chat about it. And there we have it. I'm going to call that there. A couple things to point out. I decided not to do any sort of fade in the transition. Reason being was I looked at it from this this-ish angle and I saw a nice line here mixed with the line that came with the map on this side, and I thought that was great. I really enjoyed that. Were I working on this map more, I would maybe even do like a cool walking park in here. And I don't know, benches and lights and gazebos and the whole 9 yards. So I'm leaving that as a quote hard edge, although it's not as hard, right? Because the trees are more spaced out. Because of course with vanilla, there is not the unlimited trees mod. So keep that in mind. The other thing to know is that as you'll see, I tried to do a few clusters of trees, right? To get that genuine randomness, I guess, that we're trying to go for. And when you place trees closer together like this and you have a good clump of them, the ground starts to change color to represent the availability for like a forestry industry kind of thing, right? You can see it up here. Same way it does for farming, all that stuff. So I actually like that variety in the ground as well to complement it. So to me, it was important not to have this density of trees everywhere to keep the variety in the ground. And that's it. That's my vanilla forest. I think without it, like with having it be not overcrowded, I think it looks great. Let's see if we can try. Is there someone? There's no one walking along the street right now. So we will even walk along the street ourselves. And I think that looks wonderful. If we take an opportunity here to turn in and walk along the trees, yeah, that looks great. Whoa. That's how I would do a pretty forest, get some decoration in if I was playing vanilla. Now, how would I do it? How do I do it when I use mods? For the next part of the tutorial, let's do the exact same thing how I have been doing it for a very, very long time, and that is with the Move It mod. So I would typically come here, get rid of the tutorial messages. I've done this once or twice. Let's put on just the city's trees again. And here's what I would do. I would do something very similar. I would plan out my trees the same way, try to get a height difference, or at least a texture difference, a color difference, blah, blah, blah. That would all be the same. And I would try to get a small little cluster of trees with the general number of trees that I want in relevance to each other. So 2 yew trees, 5 of that other guy, maybe like maybe just 2 of those and 1 of these, because this is the highlight color after all, right? Then I would come down here to the bottom right, to the Move It mod. I would highlight, if you're in a busy area, you could double click trees, so it's just trees. It wouldn't really matter either way. Highlight them all like this, and Control C. And I would make sure that Prop and Tree Anarchy, if you have it installed, is off to start at least. And what I would do is I would start to spam the same rotation of trees fairly far apart from each other, but I would just put them in. And what you can do if you have Prop and Tree Anarchy on, you can go over top a building like this, and it just won't place them on top of it. So I would start to do that. Then when they start to get kind of close to each other, I would rotate it by holding down right click and turning however much you want. And I would start to move, spam them a little bit in other places. And then what I would do, because this is taking a while, right? I would find a spot where I've got a good little cluster close together. I would escape, and I would do basically the same thing again. So I would take more trees this time, Control C, maybe rotate it once, and start to fill in the gaps. And I would maybe even repeat that process one more time once this starts to look too patterny. So let's do it. You know what? We can probably just rotate. We can probably get away with just rotating it. So let's get all of these gaps filled in. See how much quicker this is? It's pretty darn quick. That's it. Look at how much more we've done. Now note the ground color. There are, of course, mods that take that away if you're doing the modded thing. And that's it. That's a forest done in, I don't know, what was that, seconds? We can come down here, we can look at it. It looks just as good. It's still just vanilla trees. Of course, there's a wide variety of trees you can get from the workshop if you're on PC. But yeah, same concept, just made a whole bunch quicker with Move It. So how do we make it easier than this? There is this mod that exists, and I actually genuinely forget what mod this comes from, but I don't use it. You can take the tree you want and you can do this with it, and it's cool, it's fine, and then you can do the other tree and it's cool and fine. And if you right click, it undoes it. Great. But I've very late to the game, discovered a new mod called Forest Brush. Golly. Golly, is it amazing. So that's what inspired me to finally make this tutorial. So you can find it on the workshop. The shortcut that I just did right there was Alt-B, and we are going to make a new brush, which is this button, just create new brush, bing, and we're going to do the same trees we just did. Again, of course, so many trees in the workshop, but let's do the ones we just did. We know that we want the U. I know there's a search function, but I always just scroll. So here's the U. We click on it. This little guy tells you how often they will spawn. And remember, we don't want there to be a million U trees, right? So let's get rid of those. I'm trying to think of little ratios here. Let's make the U at like 80. Because what we're going to make at 100 is going to be... What was it? It was Chinese windmill number 1. We will leave him at 100. Maybe we'll leave him at 95. So let's just do those two together. See if we like that ratio. I like that ratio. That looks fine. Great. And then we get back up to the bamboo trees. So we'll put this guy pretty far down in probability. What do we think? Like 35? And this fella can be at like 60? Let's test that, see what that does. And I mean, I don't mean to brag or anything, but I think I nailed it. And I didn't even practice those. So just like that. So you tick the ones that you want. You give them a probability of showing up. And then this is fairly self-explanatory. Size is how big of the area you are covering, right? And then the strength is, I'll show you. Bam, there's 100. And then if we bring it way down, it just is how many trees spawn at once. So you can do the same thing to delete. You just right click over them like I just did. So we'll keep the size. This is pretty good. And I'll get the strength. I like to leave the strength lower and then go back over areas if I want to. But look at, again, prop and tree anarchy is off. So I kind of have freedom to do what I want. And that's it. That's it, guys. We're done. We're done the forest. I can go back over it if I want. But like, that's it. That's it. Let's do a little whoosh here. Done. Done! So, same forest, 3 different ways. I am a big fan of that forest brush. I'll show you, the best thing is once you've saved the brush, you can, so I think we go like this and we go, subscribe today. And there's a way to save this bad boy. I think you just do this and it's saved. It just saves by itself. And once we click new, it'll still be in here. So I'll show you a couple that I've done. Let's see. Tropical is pretty fun. It's just a whole bunch of like cool tropical looking trees that belong in, I don't know, California or something. Let's get you some medium small color. This I was trying to figure out what trees I had installed that would show color in the snowfall. So that was these guys. I actually haven't done it in a non-snowfall world. It looks pretty good still. And then the next two I really, really love. Let us do tall pine. These are just tall pine trees, just like their names. But they're actually more like redwoods. This is like thick Vancouver mountains, British Columbia mountains. I love this. I love this a lot. Looks like garbage from far away, doesn't it though? Wow. That's just a graphic setting I think I have. So I really, really love that one. And then finally, I've got the thin pine. And if we put him over here, yes, this was also intended for a snowfall map. These two were. And it's just thin, tall trees that look good in winter. So once you save them, they save across your save files. So I made these in my snowfall worlds. So that is 3 different ways to make a pretty forest in City Skylines. If you've got a better try that again. If you've got a better tip or trick, let me know in the comments. What am I missing? But I mean, you saw how they got gradually easier, right? So that's that. If you like this kind of tutorial, let me know. Give me a little thumbs up. Otherwise, just tell me something good in the comments. And thanks very much, guys.